sometimes people think if I have doubts, then I don't have faith. And that's
Yeah.
not true. You can have doubts, you can have questions, you can have anger. You can still have all of those and still have a faith in the Lord. That's what lamenting is. It's like holy complaining. It's like, God, this is what I thought you were going to do, and you didn't. I thought you were going to heal my friend. I prayed so fervently for him to heal my friend Jeannie of her cancer. And I had the faith to believe it, but he chose not to. Now, what do I do with that? Some people might say, well, I'm out, God, and then walk
Yeah.
away from your faith. So that's when you know you've gone to the bad side. Some people will say, well, how do I wrestle with it? Wrestling with God is where he wants you to be. That's that intimacy. So it's okay to have the doubts and the fears and the questions and all of that, but go to God with them. Don't have it be what turns you away from God.
Welcome to Overwhelmed to Overcomer podcast with coach, encourager, and strategist Anna McLaughlin. If you're a Christian woman who has big dreams rooted in an even bigger God, but most days those dreams feel completely out of reach, trust me, I get it. As a homeschooling mama of 4, entrepreneur, investor, and all-around wearer of many hats, I am right there with you. And yet the Lord invites us to live out our God-given purpose now in the midst of the madness. So let's explore together how we can know our calling and walk in it today with clarity, with courage, with each other. It's time for you to live the life you love and love the life you live. Let's do this thing.
Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Overwhelmed to Overcomer. I have just a gem, a delight of a woman here. Jodi Snowdon is going to teach us how to find deeper strength, how to find the Lord and all his fullness on the other side of our losses. Jodi, thank you so much for being here.
Oh, I'm so glad to be here with you, Anna. It's such a joy.
Can you talk a little bit about yourself? Just share a snippet. I've gotten to know a little bit already. Actually, y'all, I have to say this. We recorded like 30 minutes and then I was like, we didn't actually record. So here we go, round 2. It's going to be even better. I'm so excited. So Jodi, again, for me and freshly for everybody else, tell us about you.
Yes. Well, first of all, thank you for having me. So, I have a book called Depth Growing Through Heartbreak to Strength. It has a tree on the front with these deep roots. And what happened in my life is that deep rooted growth happened through my heartbreaks. It didn't happen when life was going well. It happened when I went through my divorce. I lost a friend to cancer and my miscarriage. And God used those heartbreaks to just grow me deeper in my faith. And so, I never sat out to write a book. You know, I'm a school teacher, I teach science. So, but now I have a podcast and a blog and, I speak and I wrote a book. So it's just beautiful how God can sometimes take these hard things and birth a whole ministry out of you. And now I love to go and help others in the middle of their heartbreaks. So that's a little bit about me.
I love that. And so you are actually in the process of relaunching your book right now. Tell us about that. What brought that to pass?
So it's very exciting. I went through my divorce in 2014, and for 10 years, I was a single mom. And in 2023, I ended up meeting this amazing man and I got remarried. So, one of the reasons I needed to relaunch it because I need to change the name on the cover.
Yes.
But since I published it in 22, I realized a lot of life had happened. And those heartbreaks I shared about that are in the book were really important in that time. But since then, I've had more heartbreaks. I wish I could tell everyone it's a one and done. You have one heartbreak and then you're done. But I lost my dad and then my mom has dementia. So there's this joy of finding David and then there's this sorrow of new heartbreaks. And so my publisher suggested I write an epilogue to add to the book as we were doing the name change and relaunch it as a revised and expanded edition. I've also added new free resources to the back of the book as well. Just real practical things to help people that are walking through pain or something for yourself personally. Just like 10 things of this and just I think practical is so helpful. So
Mm-hmm.
that is why I'm relaunching it.
I love it. And so in your book, and this I love, you gave us an acronym, and the acronym is STRENGTH. So now
Correct.
you've got not only the original losses that kind of gave birth to all of this, but then in the epilogue, you've got these new losses that you've been reckoning with. So talk to me about strength and how it really leads each of us through the grieving process.
Yeah. So, first of all, it's not our own strength. So, when I say growing through heartbreak to strength in the subtitle, it's really God's strength as we depend on Him. And this is something I learned, especially through my divorce. I would say that was probably my greatest heartbreak where I just was broken. And God just really met me in my pain in such a tangible, intimate way. We were talking before about the intimacy that happens as we seek God in the middle of our
Mhm.
heartbreaks. And so, that strength became something that I just needed to rely on. I couldn't do it in my own strength, I needed Him. So I would start some days with just a prayer like, God, I need your wisdom. I'm parenting alone. How do I go through this? What do I need to, wisdom, practical. Sometimes I
Yeah.
would just say, give me strength. I'm tired. I'm grieving. My kids are grieving. I'm just emotionally exhausted, spiritually exhausted, physically exhausted. So sometimes it was simple as that. Sometimes it would be long times with the Lord in the morning while the kids were
Mhm.
asleep, where I just would cry out to Him, journal, lament, just really get out what I was feeling. But all of that, as I started to do that, I started to feel His strength. And I realized, so many times when we're going through good things, we just rely on our own strength because we can do it.
Yeah.
And I actually have a pretty good, amount of capacity. But when I was in this brokenness, I could not do it in my own strength. And that
Mhm.
became a gift to fully rely on God. So the word strength, I kind of like turn it on its side and make an acronym out of it. And what's beautiful is when I started to write this book, it was mostly on the divorce. And then God kind of reminded me of these other heartbreaks, like my miscarriage and losing my friend. And so I think, well, how do you write a book with three storylines? God,
Yeah.
I just don't know how to do that. And He dropped this word strength into my head and kind of turned it on its side and started giving me these words, and I realized that's how I'm going to do it. So each of the
Mhm.
headers has three mini chapters underneath it with each of the storylines. And
Yes.
so the S is seek God and invite Him into your pain, and that's where you start. And so if someone just got the diagnosis from the doctor or the divorce papers served or whatever the heartbreak is, this is where you begin. And it's really what's modeled in the Psalms. David shows you how to
Mhm.
lament, right? It's bringing it to the Lord, and it's this isn't what I wanted my life to look like, but this is what I'm dealing with. And then inviting God into it, right? And sometimes
Yes.
it's anger, sometimes it's worry, sometimes it's frustration, sometimes it's sadness, all the emotions, but you just don't want to walk away from the Lord. And
Mhm.
again, there's this quote by John Ortberg that says, if you ask someone when they walked away from their faith, the answer will be suffering. But if you ask someone what grew their faith the most, the answer will be suffering. So that's just the
Yes.
catalyst. What are we going to do with it? So that's where the strength acrostic starts with seek God and invite Him into your pain.
And take me here real quick because I think what you mentioned in that quote, I wonder if it's one of the reasons that we as believers might try to rush through the process because
Mm,
there's this fear of, well, I don't want to lose my faith, I don't want to lose the Lord, but anger kind of comes part and parcel with believing in a sovereign God. Like at some point there's something along the lines of you let this happen. You could have healed, you
right.
could have raised, you could have turned the corner, you could have changed the heart, and you didn't. And so that I've noted, like, I guess my question is, how can we know while we're in it, while we're underwater, right? How can we know, or to what degree can we even know, am I on the path that's going to lead to the greatest growth, or am I on the path where I'm going to turn away from the Lord? Like, what are the
Mm.
markers we can have so that we can feel more willing to go through the process and less afraid?
I love that you brought this up because sometimes people think if I have doubts, then I don't have faith. And that's
Yeah.
not true. You can have doubts, you can have questions, you can have anger, you can still have all of those and still have a faith in the Lord. That's what lamenting is. It's like holy complaining. It's like, God, this is what I thought you were going to do, and you didn't. I thought you were going to heal my friend. I prayed so fervently for Him to heal my friend Jeannie of her cancer. And I had the faith to believe it, but He chose not to. Now, what do I do with that? Some people might say, well, I'm out, God, and then walk
Yeah.
away from your faith. So that's when you've gone to the bad side. Some people will say, well, how do I wrestle with it? Wrestling with God is where He wants you to be. That's that intimacy. So it's okay to have the doubts and the fears and the questions and all of that, but go to God with them. Don't have it be what turns you away from God, because He can handle it and He wants you to seek Him. And you don't always just seek Him with a happy heart. You can seek Him with a sad heart. You can seek Him with an angry heart. You can seek Him with a questioning heart, like doubts. A lot of times doubts are the catalyst to deeper faith, right? That's what's going
Mhm.
to bring you to that depth. So bring all that to Him and then ask him to help you, give me some perspective. And we're going to get to some more about perspective later, but right in the beginning, you might not have it, but you're just asking God to help you through the grief. The key
Mhm.
is through. You can't
Yeah.
go around it. You can't go up and over it. You got to go through it.
Yeah.
And it's hard. People just, this is why they walk away, or they find other ways to cope with it, which are unhealthy. So
Mhm.
this is where you start. And again, David shows it in Lament. And there's a great book, if someone's in that, called Dark Clouds, Deep Mercy. His name
Mhm.
is Mark, and I can never pronounce his last name, but it's Vroegop or something like that. Anyways, I had him as a guest on my
Mhm.
podcast, and he shares about the loss of his baby. He had a baby that he lost, and just trying to figure out, how do you deal with this, the wrestling.
Yeah.
And this is the book that came from it, and it is so good. Now, I didn't have this book when I was going through my heartbreaks. Since then it came out, and I was like, this would have been gold if I had it when I
Uh,
was grieving. But I found what I was doing was similar, and I didn't even know it. Is I would write my lament, but I wouldn't end with that. I would say but or yet. And that
mhm.
transition statement is in what brings it back to God. Yet, God, I know you are close to the brokenhearted, Psalms 34:18. Or, God, I know you will never leave me nor forsake me. And you know what? You claim a promise in the Bible. So you lament, you complain, you get it all out, and then you enter into that conjunction. But yet, however, pick your favorite
Mhm.
one and then give a promise. And this is what happens in the Bible. If you
Yeah.
read David's Psalms, you'll find those words where he's transitioning, and it's beautiful. I mean, there's
Mhm.
so many examples. Even Lamentations has it. So
Yes.
and he points
Yes.
those
That's
out
what I
in
was
his
thinking
book.
of. Yeah. I think it's the New Living Translation became kind of a I don't know what the word is, like just a banner for a friend of mine and I who were both going through challenges at the same time. Lamentations 3, I think it starts
Yes,
17. I'll never
23 probably. Is
Okay,
that
okay.
the one
That's
where
right.
it's like the
Yes,
print?
that's it. 23. And so,
Yeah.
and this version says, I will never forget this awful time as I grieve over my loss. And yes, that's how we talk. And you just hit so
Mm-hmm.
deep. But this I call to mind, and therefore I have hope. Because of the Lord's great love, his mercies are new every morning, and great is thy faithfulness. I forget all the ways it goes, but
Yes.
right. And it's like in some ways, those are the most powerful it's so true. And it's that turning point that we're all looking for. And love, Jodi, what you said of, yet I know. Like it's okay not to feel. It's okay
Mm,
not to have evidence of, but we can choose to know that the word is true. And so yet I know God is faithful. Yet I know that he is the light in the darkness. And so that I think is so encouraging for whoever's in the middle, who's at this just step one of just feeling that grief so deeply where you can't even think sometimes to just go, okay,
yes.
I get to get it all out on paper, but I'm going to choose not to stop there. And I'm going to choose to own a promise of God, even if I just have to write it verbatim out of scripture. And I don't know that I believe it, but I know that it's true anyway.
Yes. And you could even say, and God's word says, if you're not ready to say,
Yes,
I know, God's word says, and then you're going to
it's
just
good.
cling to that promise. And I love that you brought up Lamentations. It's 3:22 and 23, I think
Thank
is
you.
but it starts, but I love it because it starts with this like saying of how you're really feeling, but then it says, but, and then
Yes.
yet, and it switches to this hope. And we sing that song, right?
Mhm.
That they've turned that into a song. And so it's just powerful. And I do think this is the first step. This is where you start. And this is it's not a one and done. You might be here for years. And actually God wants to have that time with you. So even as you do it and you get a little healthier, or you get a little more healing, and it's not as deep pain, this is where you still want to stay, where you're bringing all your things to the Lord. We were talking in the first time we recorded that, but just little things like transitions. Like I just launched my son off to college. There is grief there is loss. It's not the same as a divorce, right? There's levels, but
Yes.
this is still something where I've had to go back and lament, to just say, God, I don't know
Mhm.
what my new role is. I feel lost a little bit,
Mhm.
in light of losing my dad and then my kids launching. Now I feel like it's a double hole in my heart, and
Yeah.
just bringing it to him and just sharing the honesty that I feel. But I know, God, that, you have a plan bigger than I can understand. And so you just claim that promise at the end. So I think
Oh,
that,
yeah. That's so good. And I mean, we had a great conversation about it before that you guys missed, but I want to underline it a little bit because it was such a good point that I was asking you, does this process hold true? Is it still needful when we have these, what we might say are, how many tens or hundreds of thousands of parents a year launch kids off to college. And so we can get this little story that's going to say, oh, well, everybody's going through that, or, no big deal. Who hasn't, gone through this situation? And we try to push the balloon under the water. But then what you're saying is we still got to deal with it.
Yes.
Mhm.
Well, people try to minimize your pain all the time.
Yeah.
Like, and just don't let people, if you feel it, then that's a grief you need to deal with. God wants
Mhm.
you to take that to Him and wrestle it with Him and lament and deal with it. It doesn't have to be the same. Someone else can launch their child to college and be so excited to be, free. And you know what? There is an excitement. I mean, I'm a newlywed, so there is an excitement of we've got the house to ourselves, but there's also a loss of like identity, so maybe
Yes.
like launching your child to kindergarten, that you might still have it there and you think, well, this is silly, why am I crying? I just took him to kindergarten. Or he finishes
Mhm.
preschool, or they're off to middle school versus the elementary years are over. I mean, there are seasons where things transition, and it's okay to say this is an area of loss. It doesn't have to
Yeah.
mean someone else thinks it is. I even a miscarriage, many people minimize it, like, oh, you got pregnant before, you'll get pregnant again. And it's like, but this is a loss.
Yeah.
They'll say, at least you can get pregnant. We were talking about the words at least.
Mhm.
This is not helpful. So don't minimize, don't silver lining it with, oh, you at least it's like none of
Mhm.
that's helpful to the person. Empathize with them. Or maybe some of these things are just between you and God. It's not something that you
Yes.
need to weigh in with a bunch of other people. You can lament with God and just say, this is what I'm dealing with. Maybe tell your spouse or a close friend, you know.
And this is one of the things that I think is so important, because and this is right where we were when I realized we weren't recording. So here we go. We got it. But we were talking about um the temptation to just say, like, it I think the temptation is to say, well, it's indulgent to like sit around and cry and just let all the emotions out. But you but I just wonder your thoughts on this. And this is, you've mentioned Brene Brown, and this I think is some of her work as well. One of the things that she said is, her most controversial finding in her data is that we as parents cannot give our children what we don't give ourselves. And I think it's the same in grief. If we aren't willing to go there with our own selves and feel it all the way through, can we really give it to another? If
Right.
we pushed it under the water when we lost a baby, had a kid go off to college, had a parent die, had a relationship end, had a just disappointment with work or whatever it is, and if we just said, buck up, get over it, keep going, you got people to serve and things to do. I mean, in your experience, as you've done this work, can you give people that power of presence and give them what they need if you haven't allowed yourself to go there?
Well, I don't think you could give what you don't know, right? So if you don't know how to let yourself really sit in the pain, then you can't sit in the pain with someone else very easily. It's going to be very
Yeah.
uncomfortable. You're going to want to try to quickly get them to where you think they should be. But that's the
Mhm.
thing. Grief is not your timetable, it's their timetable, and they are
Yeah.
going to grieve how they want to. So we can't rush it. And the T in strength is tearfully allow yourself time to grieve and process the emotions. You have to give yourself time. And we talked about this before. People want to rush it. You sometimes want to rush it. Like, I don't want to
Yeah.
be sad anymore. I don't want to be sitting in this anymore. But you have to go through it. And so you have to give yourself time to grieve. So maybe it's a counselor you get that you process it with them, or a
Mhm.
support group. The Empty Arms support group was really helpful when I went through my miscarriage. We processed things that people would say to me that were just unheard of, and how that was so hurtful. And someone else would weigh in what they were, you process it with someone that understands, right? That's very healthy.
Mhm.
That helps you heal. So if there is a friend or someone in your life that's not able to sit in it with you, maybe they're not the one you call when you're crying.
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
have some friends that are so great at validation and empathy and all these things, and just really sitting in it with me. Those are who I call, and I
Yeah.
do the same for them. So you could have different friends for different seasons, but the gift of presence is what you want to give. So if you're out there right now and someone's hurting, do not try to fix it. Do not try to
Mhm.
give them a little platitude that's like going to tell them everything's okay. It's not okay right now. In their heart, it's not okay.
Yeah.
The pain is real. So just sit with them. Ask them what they need. Can I bring you a meal? Can I come babysit
Mhm.
your kids? Can I come help in the house? Or can I just come listen? Or do you just need time? Some people are
Mhm.
verbal processors like I am. I like to talk it out. Some people want to be internal and have time alone. So you have to kind of know who you're working with and give them what they want, space and grace. For some, they're going to want to talk on the phone with you. I talked on the phone all the time through my divorce. I would take my dog on a walk and we go around the park and I would just call a different friend. That was how I worked through it. For I know another friend, she didn't want to talk to anyone. So she just sat and was quiet. And that's how she dealt with it.
Mhm.
Neither way's right or wrong. And I think we try to put our way onto someone else and say, you're doing it
Mhm.
wrong. Grief, you can't do grief wrong unless you avoid it. You
Yes.
you have to go through it. If you avoid it and try to cope a different way, that's when you're not dealing with it. So I guess that would be considered
Mhm.
wrong. But there you have to let yourself feel. And sometimes there might be a season where you have to table it, like you have something happen in your life and it's not the timing, but you have to eventually go back to it. You can't
Yes.
never deal with it. So there is times where
Mm.
people have to say, like today, like for example, my sons graduated, one from high school, one from college. In the middle, my dad passed. Well, my son's high school graduation, I had to table any grief I was feeling to be there. It's this joyous milestone. You think about your kid graduating high school so much. It's like, now I'm here and I don't want to be in the stands crying. That's not appropriate. So you have to sometimes to cope with it, you table it so
Mhm.
you can be there, but then you go back to it. You don't ever you don't just say, oh, I'm never going to talk about it again. So
Mhm.
there are so many ways to handle grief, and that process your emotions. This is for you. What do you need? So
Yes.
take the time to grieve, and it doesn't have to be fast, and it may take years, and it's a process, right? Grief is a
Mhm.
process. There is no right or wrong way. I hope
Yeah.
that's helpful.
Oh, it's so good. Yeah, and I think now I know we could pick it up later too, but we're just going to go there now is the book that I talked to you about
Yes.
in
Oh,
what
so good.
on our first trial, the rabbit listens. And so for whoever is walking alongside of someone or just needs to feel the permission to, just like you talked about, be where you are. It's a children's book. It's called The Rabbit Listens. I now know that. I went and looked it up in between. And it's this precious story. There's a kid who builds a tower, and then these birds fly through and they knock over the tower. And Jodi's so graciously listening to the story all over again because you, friend,
No,
need
I
to hear
love
it.
this. This is the best thing. I have never heard of this book till today. So Anna, tell
Yeah.
it again. I love it
It's
so
perfect.
much.
It's perfect. And I read it with my children and we talk through this is how you be a friend to someone. So this child gets their tower knocked over by these birds that fly through. And then a series of animals show up to try to help the child process his emotions. And each animal kind of exemplifies what the animal might exemplify. And so the elephant tells the kid to forget about it. And then the hyena says, let's just laugh about it. And then there's this, yeah, the owl says, let's think about it. I don't remember, but there's like 6 or 7 different processes that each animal is like, this is what you should do. This is what you should do. This is what you should do. And the child doesn't want to, and they walk away honestly angry, which that is an emotion that we can find ourselves on the other side of when we're grieving. If somebody has an expectation of they want to fix it for you and it's not working. Um, and so that's what happens to this child. And then the rabbit comes and the
Mm,
rabbit sits and he's just present. And then as the rabbit sits and is like super close to the boy, just eyes closed, very attuned to the child's emotions, the child, and this is what blew my mind about the book and what I found so profound. The child begins to express everything that the other animals encourage the child to express. So the child
mm,
actually does choose to forget about it or pretend it didn't happen for a season, does choose to kind of be analytical and think it through, does choose to laugh about it. And then but it's in his timing and it's him leading instead of the rabbit. And then
so good.
it's so good. And then at the
Hmm.
end, the child does really what you talk about in your process, Jodi. Towards the end of the grief process, the child's now ready to recreate and to bring
Mm,
beauty from ashes. So
yes.
so I'll link
I
it in
love
the
it
show
so much.
notes. Yeah, I feel like every human being needs that book because we don't we don't know what to do. And the one other thing that I will say that I someone clued me into along the way, which was so helpful, is um oftentimes people won't know what they need initially And
Hmm.
so I've had some folks suggest, hey, like asking a specific question can be really helpful. Like, may I bring you a meal tonight? Would that feel good? As opposed to
Hmm.
the open-ended, what do you need? Just like you were saying, Jodi, may I come and take a walk with you? May I do a load of laundry for you? May I bring you dinner tonight? Very specific requests. Then a yes or no is a lot easier because what do you need? I need it to not suck right now is what I need it to be. That's what I need. I was like, can you do that?
Right.
No, I don't know what I need then. And then,
Yeah, for
and then,
sure.
and then the other thing was consistent check-ins too, of like,
Yes.
okay, Tuesday a meal didn't feel good, but Thursday a meal might feel perfect. Wednesday I
Right.
didn't want a conversation, but by Friday, yeah, that's all I want to do is talk. So,
And I think the level that you know the friend, the more you can organize things for them.
yeah,
Because what's going to happen is everyone's going to try to help this person at the beginning, and it's very overwhelming. So when my friend Jeannie was like, we organized a meal train where I was in charge of people saying I would like to bring the meal, and I would set it up, so she didn't have to even think about it. They would
yeah,
just show up at her house at they were scheduled nights. So if you are closer to the person, then you can even help organize and kind of get you could be the filter of all these people saying, I want to help. You guide it because they're going to be overwhelmed. They're not going to want to do it. But if you don't know them well, maybe don't try to become their best friend that organizes it. Maybe
yes,
that's not your role because maybe you just bring the one. Because I do think sometimes it's like, well, again, I drove her to her chemo appointments and I would sit with her at them. We were that level of friendship. Dear,
yeah,
dear, dear friend, one of my best friends. I wouldn't do that to someone else, so you just have to kind of know where you are at the level of friendship. And then
mhm,
again, these people that do have that deep level, please organize these things for people, the meal trains, all of that. It's a gift. It is such a gift. And they can't
mhm,
always put it into words what they need. I think that was really smart. And I love the
mhm.
empathy aspect of the rabbit. He just
No,
sat and listened and just give gift of presence and didn't try to fix and didn't try to tell him how he should do it. You should never tell someone you
mhm,
should do this.
no,
You don't know what they need, right?
mhm,
They know, and they might not even know, like you said. But so we
no,
just have to really watch our words. I just think there's a lot of people hurt in the middle of pain by
yes,
people that mean well. Right. And then
mhm,
people say, well, I'm not going to even try. Well, that's also hurtful. Don't ignore it. Like if
yeah,
you see someone they're hurting and you don't even bring it up, that's hurtful too. Like,
mhm,
hey, I'm sorry your father passed.
yeah,
That's really nice. Or I'm so sorry you're in the middle of a job loss. Or I'm so sorry, I heard, the words I'm sorry are beautiful. That
yeah,
shows empathy, right? And then you decide to the level, that person, how much you can step in and help.
mhm,
I remember I had this gal on the podcast and I have a lot of people that share their grief and then what was helpful, what was not. And she said she didn't want all the help. Like it was really frustrating to her. So you just have
yeah,
to know your people. Again, I know people go, well, now what do we do? It's like, but you just ask, don't just like
yeah,
automatically show up with the meal. They might not want that. Maybe they are
yeah,
on a special something and that's overwhelming to them. So, but
yes,
I think again, I shared this the first time. I'll share it again. That it's like scuba diving, and again, I haven't scuba dived in years. But when I was 18, I used to go all the time, which is so fun. And when you come up, you have to stop at these safety stops to like just breathe, kind of equalize out your lungs. And
mhm,
when I heard someone say grief is like being underwater, and people just want to rush you to the surface. They want to get you to above water as fast
mhm,
as they can because that makes them feel better. But
yes,
what we really need is people to sit with us at the safety stops under the water. Now, obviously, don't
mhm,
go under the water with someone, but you know what I mean? Like figuratively, like sit with them and just, it might be uncomfortable, but just sit with them. And then when they're ready to go to
mhm,
the next level, then they go and rise up at their own pace, not you forcing them to the surface when they're not ready. And it
mhm,
will cause a lot of heartbreak if you do force them or you try to encourage them when they're not ready. It could cause a friendship to not even make it because they need the time. They don't want to
yeah,
be told what to do for their own grief.
yeah. Well, and I really want to underscore what you said because I thought it was really important and something not touched on all that much is like the fact that there's a sense of there's an intimacy in sitting with someone in their grief. And so we really need to recognize that if our relationship isn't at that level, yes, they may need support, but it might not be you who gives it directly.
Mhm.
Maybe you're the
Yes.
prayer warrior and maybe there's a meal once or twice a month that you drop by. And, maybe you're not all of a sudden calling someone every day. Cause that used to be my tendencies. I was like, I know how to sit people I know how to sit with people in their pain. And so if you're in pain, I'm here. And I'd like, zoop, like right next to them. Well, they didn't know me. If we weren't already
Mhm.
close, then I'm really trampling into sacred space. And, and, because of the rawness of grief, we can get pretty messy when we're having a hard time. And there can be uh, I had someone who offered to be with me in one of my griefs in a pretty intimate way, and we weren't quite that close yet, but I was like, I could really use what's being offered, so I'm going to take it. And they ended up not seeing it through. And it was a moment that we really needed to work through, because it was like I let myself count on you, and then you didn't
Right.
come. And thankfully God gave me the grace to say it in a gracious way, but the first response was like, are you kidding me? Like I felt that in my
Right.
spirit. And we made it to the other side. But like those you're with someone in their rawest moments, the relationship has to be able to hold that. And
Yes.
not all of them can.
Well, it's interesting because sometimes something will happen. Everyone wants to come that first month or two, but
Yeah.
really, months later, no one's reaching out.
Yeah.
So maybe you even wait. And like, I always love to bring a book. The book's not needing to be there the first month or two. They're
Yeah.
still in shock. So then I come a little later and like, here's a book and how can I help? Because
Yeah.
that's when everyone else has stopped now because everyone keeps
Yeah.
moving on, right? So at the beginning, oh my goodness, this happened. And then everyone's rushes in. And then
Mhm.
there'll be a season where there'll be no one offering to help anymore. And that person is like right about that point, really still hitting it hard with the grief. And so there's another gift, the timing. So again, just be communicative,
Yes.
communicative. Well, you know what I mean. To
Yes. Yes.
communicate. The word
Yes.
I'm trying to say, communicate. Just,
Hmm.
let them know I'm here, but again, just again, how much do you know that person? I never
Yeah.
thought that. I'm always one of those like you that comes in, I want to help, but she
Yeah.
told me it was not helpful. And I thought, oh, that's the first time I've really heard that. So then I
Hmm.
realized maybe you got to think about, and again, these were close friends that I was doing this with. So it was okay. But like, yeah, if you're just a acquaintance, you just have to be careful.
Yeah.
And I guess I've walked through so much grief now that I know how to sit in grief with someone and really listen and not
Yeah.
intervene my 2 cents that I can go to someone that's just started grieving and just kind of be but I always ask,
Yeah.
I've written a book that helps people in their grief. I like to come alongside and help people in their hard places. Can I
Yeah.
listen to what's going on with you? Well, that's very sweet and inviting, but if you
Yes.
can't, like if you're one that sitting with someone in grief freaks you out, well, then don't offer it,
Yeah.
like the friend
Yeah.
that did and then reneged, like that's
Yeah.
even worse.
Yeah. It's like fold laundry instead. They need that too.
Yes, yes.
And
Totally.
the other piece you said that I thought was so good, because you said, well, then, well, we some people want this and other people don't want this. So what do we do? Maybe we be willing to get in the messy, and if we hurt their feelings, and then we have thick enough skin to hear it. Go, okay,
Hmm.
I'm really sorry. And which is what my
That's not what
friend
I meant.
which is what
Yes.
my friend did for me. She was willing to hear. I was like, that was really tough, thinking you were coming and then you didn't. And just a sweet moment in our relationship for me to be able to say that, for her to be able to hear it. And so anyway, I think when we're the person holding space, we can get in our heads of, what do they need? I don't know what they need. Be the rabbit.
Be the rabbit. I can't wait to get that book. I'm so
I
excited.
know. I know. It's gonna be fun to send it to you. Hey, friend, are you looking for a peaceful getaway where you can just breathe? A backdrop to your next hilarious girls' weekend? Or the destination for that crazy family trip? If so, our family would be honored to host you at our sweet retreat, Just Like Paradise. Located a block from the beach in beautiful family and dog friendly Oak Island, our home is perfect for families, group retreats, or even a solo or couples getaway. You know you need it. After years of praying over this home and asking others to do the same, peace is just baked into the walls. From the Three Seasons back porch to the fire pit, from the hot tub to the kids' room fully stocked with all the games, we've thought of everything to give you just the getaway you've been looking for. Simply send me a text at 704-810-1181 to skip the fees and enjoy an additional 10% discount on your next stay. Just mention the podcast. I've got you covered. We can't wait to host you at Just Like Paradise. Okay,
Thank
so
you.
we've hit a lot, like we've gone a lot of places, but take us back to the acrostic, because we've literally
Okay.
just done S&T so far. I want to make sure we hit the others,
Yes.
but I think some of what we've already talked about, we're going to be able to go kind of like we already talked about, so
Yes.
we're not only like 10% of the way in.
Yeah. Well, and I just want to say, I think these are the most important steps. So if you're just in fresh grief, right? So this is why we hit this part so much because you just got the diagnosis or what, this is where you start. But if you've had grief a little longer, maybe it's been 5 years or 3 years or something, and you're stuck and you're just like, I still am questioning God's why, or I'm just not able to move fully to the other side, then this next section is for you. And so the R is replace your finite view with God's infinite perspective. So it's a perspective piece. So maybe trying to understand, is God have a plan bigger than I can understand? And again, that Waymaker song, I just love the words, even though I can't see it, he's working. Even though I can't feel it, he's working. There's a whole nother layer to life that we can't see, that spiritual realm. And sometimes God's doing stuff that we can't see. And then later we get this like aha moment, hindsight, years down the road, and we're like, oh, but in the middle of it, we're just questioning him and frustrated. And again, that's fine to be there at the beginning, but if it's been a long time and you're just still stuck, like, I don't want you staying stuck. You won't,
Mhm.
like, again, you were saying, like, what happens, like, if you get stuck in grief, you don't move past it. You get stuck at that level. Like, you never can, you have to get through it to keep maturing and move past it. So you don't want to get stuck at that level or that age level, right? You want to, so
Mhm.
you got to figure out how to go through it. So, one of the things I love to tell is this story from Paul, because I just think Paul is such a pillar of the faith. We would think he would never struggle. But at one point in time, he was put in prison and he was speaking up until that point. And so I'm sure at one point, and he questioned God, why am I here and not out speaking? I mean, I think I would have questioned that. I probably would be complaining way more, but I'm sure Paul said it in a really,
Same.
pillar of a faith type of way. But this is what happened. He started writing letters. God would just told him to write letters. He wrote a
Mhm.
letter to Ephesus, which is the book of Ephesians now. But this time in prison, he was writing these letters. And I think he doesn't know the impact of that time because those letters are now in the Bible. So if he had gone out and spoke and didn't end up in prison, he would have reached hundreds. But
Yeah.
in prison, his letters have reached millions and millions and millions.
Yeah.
We could even say billions. That impact is amazing. And he didn't know that the place that he didn't want to be was where God was going to use him the most. And I
Yes.
just want someone to think about that right now. Is the place that God has you right now where you don't want to be? What if that's where he's going to use you the most? And you think, well, I can't let myself think like that. Well, that's that perspective piece of maybe there's more that's happening than I can see. Think of a
Mhm.
puzzle. Like, we get this puzzle piece and we're like, I don't want this. I don't want to be the woman that's divorced. I don't want to be the woman that struggles with infertility. We have this one piece and we don't want it. But what if God can see the whole cover and we can't? Can we just say, whoa, maybe there's something bigger than I can understand, right? Again, it's just
Mhm.
like giving that what if. You don't even
Yeah.
have to like know the answer yet. And sometimes we don't know this side of heaven. People want the answer right away. You might not get it for 5 years. You might not ever know. But what
Mhm.
if God's doing more? When I get to heaven, I want to ask Paul, did you know? Because I don't think there's any evidence that God shared with him that these were going to be books of the Bible. I think he just wanted him to not waste his time in prison. God doesn't want you to waste your time of waiting either. He doesn't want you to waste any of this grief time. We think of it as like not productive, but this is important stuff. And in the first round, I shared the story of the bamboo. So I need to share it in this
Yeah,
this
you
round
do.
because I'm
Yeah.
realizing that story didn't get put in. So here's this story was mind-boggling to me when I heard it. So it was
Yeah.
in the book Detours by Tony Evans, and Joseph is the character in the book. But this man goes into the forest, and it's just kind of like a story where he's just ready to give up on God. He's ready to say, I'm out. I don't know why you have me in this season. I'm just
Mhm.
done. And God says, well, what do you see around you? And he said, I see ferns and I see bamboo. And then God starts to tell a story about how ferns immediately start to grow. As soon as they're planted, you see immediately external growth. Whereas the bamboo, when it's planted, you don't see growth for 5 years. Year one, no growth. Year two, no growth. By 5 years, you're thinking this plant has died, but the entire time the growth is down, internal hidden growth that no one sees. But here's what then God says to the man. See, I know bamboo is going to be 100 feet tall. And so in order for it to withstand that height, it has to have that 5 years of internal depth. And he
Mhm.
says, I'm not done with your story either. And so this is what I'm doing. You having these struggles right now. This is this hidden growth time with
Yes.
you and me, the time with you and me in the Bible where no one else is seeing that. No, I mean, again, some people post pictures of them on Instagram with their Bible. I just can't stand that. That should be hidden time. It's you and God, time with the Lord, right? And
Mhm.
that's that hidden time. And then he's going to take you to that bamboo height whenever it's his timing. But if you're not ready, you're just going to fall over. We don't want to be 100 feet bamboo that just topples over when the first sign of wind comes. We want to be able to
Mhm.
withstand the calling that God has for us. So we need that depth. And so
Mhm.
I just thought that was so powerful. So that perspective piece of okay, I don't know what God's doing, but maybe he's got a plan bigger than I can understand. And this is that internal depth growth time. Because in 10
Mhm.
years, I'm going to do this thing that I don't even know I'm going to do. And
Yeah.
he's got this plan, and I am not ready for it. And that was Joseph. He'd given Joseph this calling, and Joseph was an immature teenager, and he's bragging to everyone about his dreams. He was completely unself aware, right?
Yeah.
And then what did it take for God to get him ready for this dream? Detours into the
Yes.
pit, sold into slavery, into
Mhm.
Potiphar's house, accused of something he didn't do, now in prison. And each detour grew him until
Yeah.
when he finally got to the calling, which is going to be second in command to Pharaoh, he had
Mhm.
matured. So maybe, and that's the E, embrace God's character development in the midst of the chaos. I'll say that again. Embrace God's character development in the midst of the chaos. You guys, that's another perspective piece. What if God's growing you? I relate to Joseph. I was very unself aware. I grew
Yeah.
up in a home that did not talk about emotional literacy. I grew up in a home that was like, you've got the joy, 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 joy down in
Mhm.
my heart. And some days I didn't have the joy. I was angry. I was sad. But that was what we were told. Like, you're a Christian, you need to have the joy. But it was
Mhm.
like, well, what do I do when I don't? No idea how to deal with hard emotions, no idea how to manage them. So then I get into a marriage, and it was hard. And
Yeah.
I don't share what happened in my marriage. I only share my part. But I have a chapter in the book called Embrace the Chisel. And I believe that my divorce was the chiseling of me, and it
Mhm.
became the better version of me. I
Yes.
was unself aware before. At 38 was when I went through my divorce. I went on a deep dive into counseling, trying to understand, why do I struggle so much with anger? I did have an anger
Mm.
problem before, and God just like grew me. And I'm
Yes.
telling you, that was the detour that chiseled me. So
Mhm.
sometimes these heartbreaks are to make you a better person. Maybe it's to make you more compassionate to someone else. I have so much more
Mhm.
compassion for those
Yes.
grieving, or more empathetic, but maybe it's even to grow you more patient, more, he's going to make you more like Jesus. This is the
Mhm.
sanctification process,
Yes.
the chiseling. Well, where does he use chiseling? It doesn't happen on a cruise ship, when you're just
I
sitting
know.
there. Like, it doesn't happen. It
Yeah.
happens with the suffering, the
Mhm.
part in life where you're like, I don't want this part of my story.
Yes.
But during that time, he grew Joseph. I grew so much. I started to
Mhm.
learn stuff. I started teaching my kids. My
Yes.
response is my responsibility became my mantra. It doesn't
Mhm.
matter what you said to me or done to me. I get to choose how I respond.
Mhm.
I don't have to just respond in anger. I can now be in control, self control, right? And so,
Yes.
again, these things that seem like no brainers, I was not taught that at a young age.
Mhm.
And I struggled when disappointment happened, hurt. Oh, that would trigger me to
Mhm.
anger so quickly. And I read some books. Oh, How We Love by Mylan and Kay Yurkovich. It's the marriage one. How We Love Our Kids is the parenting one. Changed my life. I actually
Wow.
had them on the podcast. They were my first interview. And it was
Wow.
so, yeah, it was amazing. It's such a God story. But like, that book changed me. The truths in it helped me deep dive in counseling and everything. Like, why am I the way I am? What
Mhm.
happened in my childhood? Sometimes we don't want to do that. That's hard work.
Yeah.
But you guys, sometimes that's the hard thing we're going through is because of some of that stuff. So when you do the hard work, you come out on the other side a more mature you, a
Mhm.
more self-aware you.
Yes.
Joseph was what much more self-aware after he went through those detours, to the point when the men that threw him in the pit, his brothers, came, he could forgive them.
Yes.
And he said, the best verse ever, Genesis 50:20. You meant this for evil, but God meant this for good. The saving of many lives. He had saved so many lives. Now, you guys, none of that would have happened if he hadn't gone on that first detour and been sold off into slavery. So
Mhm.
the very hard thing was where God took him for the calling, but at the same time, he grew his character development.
That's right.
It's like sometimes I think we just want the suffering to be done, but we want to become the same person on the other side. And if that
Yeah.
was what happens, I'm sad to say, then you didn't work. That didn't
Yeah.
grow you. Like the grow, there has to be a different version of you, even if it's just, I'm now more empathetic to someone hurting. Well, there you go.
Yes.
There's a
Yes.
depth. Or maybe
Yes.
it's now I'm more patient, or,
Mhm.
I don't fly off the handle like you should, or whatever. But
Yeah.
I believe that that embrace God's character development, that's the very place people don't want to be. But it is
Yes.
a beautiful way God uses suffering to,
Yes.
to, to chisel us.
Mhm. I love that embrace the chisel, that
I
phrase.
know.
Yeah, it's
Isn't
so
that the
good.
greatest title? I love.
Mhm.
Well, it's
Yeah.
funny because I was writing and it was like, we need to embrace the chisel. I'm like, there's the title of the
There it
chapter. I
is.
mean,
There it is.
really, no one wants to embrace the chisel. We want to
Mhm.
embrace that everything's going well, but
Yeah.
God refines us. And if we're not being refined, then we have to stop and go, well, we should be a better, healthier, more spirit, the fruits of the spirit more
Yes.
each year. And
Yeah.
if we're not, then something's not right. Because if you
Hmm.
are in your word more, the Holy Spirit's becoming more important in your life, then you should become more of these fruits. And the
Yeah.
fruits, it's that it's a fruit. It's the deep rooted growth is our part.
Yes.
That's the faithful
Yes.
part. But the fruit is God's part. I say our part's faithful, God's part's fruitful. We
Yes.
we just do the work, and then the fruits of the spirit are the byproduct of it.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
so, but again, people like, well, I don't, that's hard. I know hard things, do hard things, right? It's
Yes.
gonna make you a better version of yourself. And
Hmm.
and again, we never arrive. So now
Yes.
I've got more things God's trying to, like, we never arrive
Hmm.
until heaven, then we arrive. Until then, we are all works in progress. But
That's right.
that beautiful chiseling and perspective pieces, they're important because
Hmm.
then you can go from why God to what now, God. Why
Yes.
God to how are you going to use me, God?
Hmm.
Right? That's a big shift when you
Yes.
can let go of the why. Because listen, why is not going to help you. If God was to
Hmm.
tell you right now what he had planned to do, if he had said to me in 2014, you're going to write a book, you're going to start a podcast. This is why I'm having you have this brokenness time
Hmm.
in your life right now with through your divorce. I'd be like, are you crazy? Like I like it would probably scare me, right?
Yeah.
Like, well, why? Or if he would have said, it's to help someone else. I don't want to help someone else. I want to not feel the pain, right? Like, I
Yeah.
don't think the why, if he was to tell you why, it would really take the pain away, you know?
Yeah. Well, and there's always a counterpoint of like lots of other people are serving people with an intact marriage, lots of other people are serving people without having this
Yes.
loss, but it's like we want to cherry pick. And I love how you described it as a puzzle piece because
Mm,
I think sometimes we think, well, if I just pull this out, this one thing, and it's not part of my story anymore, then I still get all the other stuff. It's like, no, you don't. Like it really, when my dad passed about 4 years ago now, there came a
I'm so
point.
sorry.
Thank you. And I'm so
Yeah,
sorry
I
for you
understand
too.
that.
I know
Yeah.
you do.
Well, it's a place we don't want to be in that club, but yeah, I
Right?
feel your
It's the
pain.
club. It's the club.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there's so many clubs that we don't want to be in that we can find
Right.
ourselves in, right? And yeah,
Yeah.
like that was one of mine, is one of mine. And yet what I found after a point, he'd been sick a long time, so a lot of my grief came preceded his passing.
Yes.
So it was a little bit of a different experience because there had been so much grief all the way through that what was left, the Lord told me at one point, grief has a bottom. And so there was still stuff to feel, but it's like we'd already gone like 100 leagues under the sea and maybe we had 150 to go. And
Got it.
but so there came a point where the number of things that the Lord graced me with as far as shaping of character and relational things and all of that that came on the heels of his passing and directly because of his passing had stacked up so much where it was almost like, thank you, God, that I don't have to choose between, do I get to keep all you've grown in me or do I get to have my dad back? Because
Mm,
and one of the things we talk about in here is, may we not indignify our suffering by making it meaningless. Like, let's wring
mm,
all the meaning out that we can. Let's get all the gifts that we can to honor the depth of loss. And
yes.
and I think God wants to do that. It's like, let's not have this be in vain. Let's stack up the blessings as high as you'll let me stack them, of all of these gifts that can come as the direct result of not the loss itself, but how we grow in him because of the loss.
Yes.
Oh,
I like to call them the bless in the mess.
yeah.
Because there is some bless in the mess, and people write books about it, gifts in the
Yeah.
brokenness. And you guys, if you're out there, read the God's word, but alongside that, get some of these books like
Yes.
mine, like someone else that's writing about suffering and how God showed up for them, because it will make it become something that then, wow, if they did it for that, if God did it for them, then he can do it for me. And they were
Yeah.
just like these faith forging books. People ask me in my divorce, what book did you read on divorce? I didn't read one book on divorce. I read book on
Wow.
loss, on grief. I remember the book by oh, she sings that song Blessings. What if blessings come through raindrops? What's her name? Oh, Laura's
Oh,
Story.
yeah.
And her book was called When God Doesn't Fix It. And it's all about her husband having a brain tumor. I mean, it was like
Wow.
completely opposite. I didn't have a husband, and and her story's a health one, but the
Mhm.
principles in the book, the truths were so good
Yes.
that became like this book that I clung to. Um, so again, you can read a book that has a different storyline than yours. So again, if you don't have
Mhm.
one of my storylines, there's still truth in this book for you. I wrote it for someone grieving. It's not grieving those three things only, right?
Yes.
Because it's powerful to read how God showed up for someone else. And I just think it is a beautiful way to like give you some perspective. If that's all it does is it gives you some of these perspective pieces,
Mhm.
it's helpful, and it
Yeah.
and it forges hope. Hope is important in the middle of the grief. You need to
Mhm.
have hope that, okay, God, if you did it for them, then you could do something like this for me. You could
That's
use
it.
it. It's
Mhm.
not wasted. And that kind of leads us to the other ones. I'll go through them a little quicker if you want, because I know we've been
Yeah.
taking some.
I know. We especially since we've had 2 rounds here.
I know. Okay. Well, the end is never lose sight of God's grace. And this is important for those that have shame, because not every heartbreak has shame attached to it,
Mhm.
but there are some that do. So my divorce had shame attached to it. My miscarriage did not. So I
Mm.
didn't feel like, oh, I did something wrong.
Yeah.
The baby just passed, right? Now, someone
Yeah.
could have something that they did that, but you know what I'm saying? Like, so, but the
Mhm.
shame, so I was very, very what's the embarrassed to admit that I was going through a divorce. I was a strong Christian family. We were a strong Christian family.
Mhm.
I was a strong Christian woman, and it was like I had so much shame. But see, Satan wants us to say shackle to our shame. He wants you to think,
Yes.
no, no, no. If you tell that, people are going to like shame on you and just, but that's the lie of the devil.
Mhm.
God redeems everything. There is nothing you've done that he can't bring his good grace out of. And so if you have given the pieces to him and you have taken it, then he is going to use you in that area in probably the more profound way than anyone else. I used to think brokenness disqualified me, but no, brokenness is the very thing that qualifies me so I can help another person going through what I'm going through. And
Ooh, okay, okay. No, no, Jody, say that one more time. Someone needs to hear
okay, so
this.
yeah, I used to think brokenness disqualified me. Like I can't be used now. I'm a divorced woman. Like God doesn't want a divorce, but that's not the truth. The truth is the very thing, that brokenness is what qualifies me to speak into someone else now that's going through a divorce. Who better to help someone with addiction than someone that's overcome an addiction? Who better to help someone with even something that's not a choice, like infertility or miscarriage, than someone that's walked through that, that knows what it's
Mhm.
like to look at the pregnancy test every month and it's not showing positive? Who
Yeah.
better to come alongside and help someone than someone that's done that, right? And so our areas where we feel broken and the pain and the hurt, that is where God wants to say, use it so I can help you, have you help someone else. Now that's the H. I'm just going to jump to it. Honestly, share your story and have help another hurting heart. That is where we want to get to, but that
Yes.
means we have to be vulnerable. And there
Mhm.
is this for stigma on being vulnerable. People like, no, 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 I can't tell people my story. No,
Mhm.
you need to. I don't
Yeah.
want to get on here and tell you I've been divorced. Like, there's no joy in that. But hey, if that's going to help someone else, then why wouldn't I? And
Yes.
I love, okay, I read a book, The Mended Heart by Susie Eller, and she shares about a woman who gave her testimony with a cracked clay pot. So that weekend, I took a pot and purposely cracked it and hot glued it. And so I give my testimony. When I speak now, I use my pot because sometimes we want to be
Mhm.
this pot. We want to be the pot with no cracks.
Yes.
But that pot never helps anyone. No one relates with you in your successes. They relate with
Yes.
you in your struggles, right? If
Mhm.
I come on today and told you everything in my life was perfect, you wouldn't want to hear from me. But instead, I'm
Mhm.
coming on and being vulnerable with where I've struggled. I had an anger issue. That was a big part of my part in the divorce, right?
Mhm.
So I want to be honest with where I struggled because that's going to help someone else. And so I have again a beautiful story in the book about this woman who had two pots, one completely not cracked and one that had the cracks. And the cracked pot always felt less than to the one that
Yes.
had all of it together. And the one that had it all together was boastful. So she would go down to this creek and pick up water, walk back to her house. The other one would leak water, get back to the house, be halfway empty, and the other one be like, I didn't leak any water, right? And so one day these pots overheard the owner talking to the neighbor, and she goes, you have all these flowers in front of your home. Tell us how you got these. And she said, well, I planted seeds here. And every day I walk to the river. And on the way back, the one with the cracks leaks water and grows the seeds. See, the one
Oh.
with the full pot didn't help anyone. The
Yeah.
one with the full pot didn't help anyone grow. But the one with the cracks was part of
Wow.
another story of someone else. They came along and were able to help them by being
Mm.
vulnerable. And now you got to be careful. You don't tell it to everyone if you think someone's
Yeah.
not going to be, but like be vulnerable to that person. Like, if you've never told anyone and you're carrying something, Satan wants you to keep it a secret. There
Yes.
is shame in a secret. But if you can just tell one person and bring light on it, you're going to be free.
Hmm.
You just need to not think that someone's going to look down on you. If anything, they're going to say, "Oh, I'm so glad you told me this." I
Yes.
remember in my book, I talk about sharing that I was getting divorced. I did not want to tell anyone. And finally, there was this moment where I was up early with the Lord. I wrote this email all about how God was helping me through the divorce. And he's like, send it to everyone in your email list. And I'm like, are you kidding me? And so I did, because, if God asks you to do something, you try to do it. And then I went and
Yes.
took a shower. And the whole time I'm like, what did I just do? Like, I was in
Uh-huh.
panic. Like,
Yeah.
so I
Brene
come
Brown
back to
calls
my
that a vulnerability hangover.
Yes, I had a vulnerability hangover. And so I went back though and listen, people were sharing things with me they never told anyone. I struggle with depression. I haven't told anyone that. They were being vulnerable with me because I was vulnerable first. It was
Yes.
I would just cry as I read the emails as I realized vulnerability breeds vulnerability.
Yes, it
And so
does. Hmm.
that don't think that God's grace doesn't cover what you did.
Hmm.
It does.
Yeah.
Nothing that's been done to you that you chose to do or that just happened because we live in a broken world is something God's grace can't cover.
Yes.
So don't let
Yes.
shame be a part of your story. Please take that and help another hurting heart. It will be so
Hmm.
freeing for you.
Yeah.
And so that's the N. And I guess I shared the H.
Yes. Yes. So take us to G and T, and then we'll circle back to H one more time because it's good.
Okay, so give praise to God even as your heart breaks. This is so hard to be thankful in the middle. You're not thanking God for the heartbreak, you're thanking Him in the middle of it. There's a song by Casting Crowns called I'll Praise You in This Storm. And it was such a powerful song for me. I played it over and over. I share in my story of my friend with cancer. I called the chapter The Gift of a Day. And at the end of her life, I was taking her kids over to my house so she had time to rest. And she called me that morning. She said, could you come here instead? I'm too weak to get out of bed by myself
Mm.
now. I need help getting to the restroom. And I would like you to be here so I'm not alone all day. I said, of course. So our older two, she has two the exact same age as my kids. They were off at camp. The younger two were upstairs playing. And I just got time with her. I called it the gift of a day. It was the most priceless day. We knew she was going to pass away within about a week or two. And
Yeah.
that day was so hard. Like, knowing your friend's going to die. So we shared everything we ever wanted to share with each other. But then she said, will you help me with something? I said, anything. She's like, will you help me plan my service? I'm telling you, we started listening to worship songs to pick the songs that we would share. And I call it the gift of a day because that day I was thankful to the Lord for that time with her that I
Yes.
could not get back if I had taken the kids to my house. And it still brings me to tears because it's such a hard thing to walk through. But maybe your gift is an encouraging word from someone or that
Yeah.
meal that someone brought that just reminds you you're not alone. You're not praising God for the hard thing. You're praising God for how he's showing up, whether that's through someone or even what he's teaching you. And so, praising the Lord in the middle, there's something powerful about it. It
Mhm.
changes you in a way like lamenting is not praising. Lamenting is the complaining and finding the truth. It's praising him and like, God, I don't know how you're going to use this, but I'm going to trust that you do. But right now, I'm going to sing
Yeah.
this song. I praise you in this storm.
Yes.
I'm telling you, it's like there's so many songs out there. That was the song I mean, I had it on repeat in the car. I share another
Mhm.
story how I had it on repeat in the car on the way to this really hard appointment with my ex. And just God changed me on the way over there. Just I had such peace going into it. And so there is power in praise. I don't know what it is, but I don't want anyone going, oh, I can't praise him for this. It's not for the thing. It's
Yeah.
praising him for who God is in the
Yes.
middle of the thing.
That's so good.
And then the T is trust God is good when your mind is doubting and you don't understand. And it's kind of like there's two T's in strength. And I
Yeah.
think a lot of times you want to go to trust first. Like, I know God can, but you got to grieve first. Tearfully allow yourself time to
Yes.
grieve. And then that trust is going to come as you walk through these steps. But you will have to have a point in time where you say, even when I don't understand,
Hmm.
I trust you are good
Yes.
even when I don't get the why, or even when I don't get the thing I prayed for. And here's the crazy thing. I used to think that God showed up only when he answered the prayers. And I read this book by Craig Rochelle called, oh, is it called Hope in the Dark? And he said that there was two families, exact same circumstances. One, the person died. the other one got healing. And you might say, well, God only showed up for the one family that got God as the healer. But he said, no, he showed up to the other family as God as the comforter.
Oh.
See, God is always there. But what
Mm-hmm.
role is he playing? Is he going to heal him? Is it going to be a miracle? And I hope that is what happens to you, but that's not how any of my stories ended. None of
Mm-hmm.
them tied up with a red bow. They all
Yeah.
ended with God as the comforter, the
Yes.
faithful God. And I'm telling you, he is there and he will be with you in the middle of what you're going through, even when you don't understand. But you got to try to trust.
Mm-hmm. And what a gift, Jodi, that that's towards the end of this
Yes.
process. That's so beautiful because I think again, we pull out that Christianese on ourselves and we say, well, I know what I'm supposed to do, so I'm going to go there. But we need that time to go, okay, this is this to lament, to grieve, to have, I love that um, you have people, where is it where you talk about having people come alongside of you. I don't remember what letter it's in, but it's like sometimes we need them with skin on before we can really get to that point of like and I love that you said there comes a point, line in the sand, I'm going to trust, but
Yes.
we get to reckon with these other pieces of it first.
Yeah. Well, I
Mm.
think it's hard to trust when you're still in the middle of doubt. So that lament is helping you work through the doubts, right? And you will
Mhm.
get through it eventually to the point where you can then say,
Yes.
I trust, right? But that's not the
Yes.
first T. And it was interesting because I knew I wanted it there, but I'm like, oh, thank the Lord, there's two T's in this word, because it should be, again, it doesn't have to be at the end. And I think each time you do this, each time it gets where it's easier to get to the trust. So, like, after
Yes.
I went through my divorce, 2 years later was when I lost Jeannie. And I did struggle, but I was able to say, I know you did it before, you're going to do it again.
Hmm.
And I still had to wrestle, but I got there quicker, right? So I do think there
Yes.
is times that as you go through heartbreak after heartbreak that you see God's hand in it, or you
Hmm.
see, he's working, you know, the very first one is when the rug's pulled out from you and you're probably going to be hit the most. And again, it's just different levels of heartbreak, but I just think you cannot ever expect yourself to get there that quick. Just allow time to grieve. And then as you're getting through it, these perspective pieces are important to start then looking into.
Mm. Okay. So let's end, and I know we touched on it. Let's end with H, because
Yes.
ultimately, what a gift that we get to be here. Talk to me about H.
Okay, this is probably my favorite section in the book because the God moments that happen. So it's H is honestly share your story and help another hurting heart. And for each of my heartbreaks, a year later or 2 years later, another woman walked through the exact same thing or very close to. So I'll tell you the story with the miscarriage because it's just amazing. So this was when I was in my 20s. I think I was late 20s. I was my first heartbreak. I didn't have a lot of these truths that I now know because my divorce is really where I learned so much, being that brokenness part. But I just remember a year or so after a friend called me and it was a college friend. So I was all excited to talk to her. And she's like, there's a lady at our church who just lost a baby at 16 weeks pregnant. That's what I had happen to. And we don't know how to help her. Could you reach out to her? Now, back then, it was like 2006, I lost baby Grace. So this is 7 or 8. And texting wasn't a big thing. So it was like email. So we started emailing each other. And all I did was share my story. I didn't have any pearls of wisdom. Honestly, again, I don't know if that would have been helpful, but I just shared like, oh,
Mhm.
I made a little book for baby Grace, and we planted a tree in memory of her, and just kind of shared life with this
Yeah.
woman. Sent a book to her, Grieving the Child I Never Knew by Kathy Wannenberg, that was helping me. I send it off to
Mhm.
her, and then a little CD of a song called "Glory Baby," which is your baby's in the arms of Jesus. It's beautiful. It's
Mhm.
super super hard to hear, but it's beautiful. So then, again, all summer we just email back and forth. So then I get a call again from Allison, my college friend, and she's like, Jodi, I just came from Clarissa's service that she had for her baby. And the pastor was sharing about this woman that had come alongside and helped her. And they played the song. I just started weeping when I realized that that was me, that the pastor
Yeah.
was talking about how this woman had helped her so much in her pain. And I didn't realize that anything I was doing would be that helpful. I was
Yeah.
just being open to talking about it. She didn't feel alone, and just again just sharing what I was doing. And that's when my life verse happened that summer.
Yeah.
2 Corinthians 1:3-4. Praise be to the God who comforts us so that we can then go and comfort others. You
Mm.
guys, this is what it's all about.
Yes.
This hard, and again, I don't know why we go through hard things, but I know for a fact you can help someone with it that I can't reach because I didn't walk through that. So that miscarriage, the exact circumstance, again, it didn't have to be the exact to help her, but in this scenario, God showed me someone with the exact circumstance. Hers was a boy, mine was a girl. That was the only difference. And I was able to help her. And it was just such a healing moment in my journey that summer. I just sat there and I realized, wow, maybe this is why we go through these hard things. And this is what's even more exciting. So when I wanted to get the book published, I wanted to have her name in the book. She's in one of the chapters and I couldn't find her anymore. We had lost touch. So I just prayed to God, please help me find this woman. It's kind of a crazy story. It was 4th of July weekend. I found her husband on Facebook. He didn't reply. So I realized where he worked. He was a firefighter. So I called the firefighter place. Can you please see? He was on vacation. The lady realized, I guess I wasn't cuckoo and gave me his email. And so I emailed them and it was one of those Hail Marys like, okay, God, if you can get me in contact with them before I have to turn this in. And that Friday night, I get an email back. She would love to connect with you. And yes, she says, use her name in the book. And then when we talked, we actually did an episode on the podcast because it was so powerful. When we talked, she said, Jodi, you know that book you gave me? I now buy it and give it to other people. So now
Oh,
she's honestly sharing her story and helping another her. And it's this beautiful moment of like a bridge where
oh,
sometimes we're the one on the bridge and someone comes back and helps us across. And then sometimes we're on the other side and we go back and help people. You guys, this is what it's all about.
yes, it
If you're
is.
not using your broken story to help another hurting heart, you are missing a big part of God's plan to bring purpose to your pain. The pain's
Yes.
still there. I will never change the pain, but purpose to your pain is a beautiful redemptive gift God gives us.
Oh, oh gosh.
It's powerful.
Yeah. Jodi, I usually say, okay, what encouragement would you give? But I'm like, that's it. That's it. That's
That's
it. There
it.
it is. There it is. I mean, that I don't feel like there's anything more to say than that. If you're not,
Yeah.
but say it again, if you're not using your pain.
If you're, well, so let's take it like broken pieces, right? Because maybe your pain looks like hurt, whatever you want. So I like to say, if you take those broken pieces and you hold them like this and say, I didn't want this part of my story, God can't use them. But if instead you take your broken pieces and you say, I'm going to lay them at the feet of Jesus. I didn't want this for my life. I didn't want to be divorced. I didn't want whatever it is you fill in the blank. But then you say, God, use me to help someone else.
Mhm.
Use my story. That's when he can take it and it won't be wasted. He will use it in the most beautiful way. He'll blow your mind away with how he's going to use you personally to help along the side of one person, maybe more. But one person will bring such a full circle. But you guys, it could be even more. Maybe there's a ministry inside of you he's wanting to bring out that you didn't even know existed. Or maybe does that scares you and then don't still ask God to use your pain. But God wants just he specializes in redeeming broken stories. This is what he specializes in taking our broken pieces and turning them into these powerful ways we can meet others in their pain. It's just a beautiful way he redeems it.
It's so good. Oh, Jodi, thank you for all of this. What a gift. This
Thank
is a
you.
really powerful conversation, and it's so important because ultimately, just like you said, and we've been really living in John 15 as a podcast community, this idea of abiding and bearing. And everything you
Yes.
shared, that's exactly the journey that you invite us into through this process of walking out this strength acrostic. So thank you
Yeah.
so much.
You are so welcome. Can I just share one last thing?
Do it.
Okay, so again, I told you the story about the tree. Well, here's another tree story to end with because this is where, again, God just blew my mind away. And it has to kind of do with the hurting heart. So I went to the sequoias. I live in California. So the Sequoia
Yeah.
National Park is the tallest trees in the world. Okay, so I couldn't wait to think, how deep did their roots actually go? And when I got there, the guy's like, they don't grow deep at all. And I'm like, no, no, no. This is my life message. How do the tallest trees survive if they don't grow deep? And then he said this, they don't go deep, they go wide and they interlock tree roots with the trees around them. And so your
Oh.
job with if I think about the John 15, the abide part is that deep rooted depth,
Hmm.
right? That we are supposed to have. That's that hidden time. But then the bearing of the fruit, the helping others, that is where we widen out our roots and we come along and we help other people. And so just imagine both the depth and the width next time you're trying to think about the tree.
Oh, that's so good. Thank you, Jodi.
Thank
All
you for
right.
having me. It's been such a joy.
I know both times. It was a pleasure.
Both times. I love it.
And then, okay, so we're going to get your book. We'll put everything in the show notes, but any specific directives that you want to share with people so they can connect with you?
Yeah, so I have a website, jodisnowdon.com. And so it's JODISNOWDON. Everyone wants to put an E there, but it's an
Okay.
ON and .com. And so everything's there. They can find the book, they can find the podcast. I have a Heartbreak to Strength blog where I have guest writers come and they write their story. Because again, there's power in identifying with someone else's heartbreak, that you can say,
Yes.
me too, that's how I feel. And so I love to have people come on and share. And then there's links for the book. And yeah, I speak to if there's any an area that would love to come. Books are part of my healing. I want my book to be part of someone else's healing and their deep rooted growth. That would be such a joy for me.
I love it. Jodi, thank you so much. What a gift.
Thank you for letting me come on and share, Anna. It's been so fun both times.
Both times. All right, friend, and to you, I just want to commend this conversation to you. Take a moment and think about, where are you on this strength arc? Are you at the very beginning, kind of on your knees? And I invite you in that case to lament. Give yourself that space and time. Are you kind of stuck in the middle and needing that perspective? Or are you ready to open your hands, turn around and give to others? Find your place, find Jodi's book, get the support that you need, or just keep it handy in the car so you can give it to someone that you find who needs that encouraging message. And until next time, as always, you've got this because he's got you.
Friend, thank you so much for listening to this most recent episode of Overwhelmed to Overcomer. So listen, the whole idea behind this mission is that when we endeavor to be brave with our lives, we need to do it together. Belonging is key. So if you resonated with the message from this episode, share it with a friend. Do it together. Thank you again, and never forget, you've got this because he's got you.